He was my Jack Bauer. I mean, he was my eyes and ears. So when I played the game, I'd use all of his scouting reports and all of his information. It was a huge help for me.
One of the most popular questions I get asked with my work with Kobe or how the workouts. Everybody hears about the blackouts, the hours that he spent, the middle of the night workouts, and how long they were and how aggressive they were. And I'll tell you, they were very intense, they were very fundamental, and they were very game specific. An average workout would probably last 2 to 2.5 hours. The goal would be to do game specific things. There wasn't really a number of shots he would make drill wise. It would be just, getting shots up until it felt right until he moved to the next spot. We would have a schedule that we would do and a routine, but it wasn't really like, all right, we're going to make 10 from this spot, 8 from this spot, 5 from this spot. So he wanted to make sure that, first of all, everything that we did was used in games. He made it clear right from the jump that he wanted no gimmicks, he wanted no tricks. He didn't want to work on anything that he wouldn't do in a game. He wanted to be as specific as possible as far as what he did in workouts. All right, and the big thing for him would be self-correction. He didn't want to do, he wanted to make sure everything that he did felt right, from a balance standpoint to a fundamental standpoint to a technique standpoint. And that's why I said, like, one spot he could spend a minute on, and then one spot he could spend 8 to 10 minutes on, depending on what it felt like. And that's the one thing that I could tell to young players that are trying to get better, is to make sure things feel right and just don't go from spot to spot without thinking and feeling what you're doing to make sure you go to the next thing. All right, so the first thing that he would do, that every workout you could set a clock to it, was one-hand form shooting. He wanted to make sure he can clean up anything in his shot, meaning his release point, his follow through, with his elbow positioning. He wanted to make sure everything was intact with that. So we probably spent, I'd say, anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes on one-hand form shooting, starting 2 feet from the basket straight away. Made a few to make sure it felt right, moved back. I think he probably moved back to about 24, 25 feet, and then we started our workout. Our workout would, again, be just start out with spots from 15 feet. Again, go 7 spots. Everything he did on a warm-up, spot shooting standpoint would always be 7 spots. Wanted to make sure that he worked on all the angles, the corners, wings, and top, but also the glass angles. He was a huge fan of using the glass. He thought it was a great tool, so he'd spend a lot of time working on his touch, using the glass. But we did 15-foot shots, 7 spots, made sure it felt right. Again, his footwork on the catch, follow through, release, holding them follow through, self-correcting, making sure that that everything felt right before he moved to the next spot. In between our sessions and our sort of the different things that we did, he would always want to do some ball handling and then free throws, obviously. The ball handling would be specifically, stationary ball handling, working on both hands, working on different angles that he would dribble the ball with. He wanted to make sure he had strength in his hands, wrists, and forearms, and he wanted to make sure he could put the ball where he wanted, when he wanted. Didn't really work on a lot of crossovers or move specific things. He wanted to make sure fundamentally and foundationally that his ball handling was all on point with his strength and things like that. After the free throws and ball handling, would get into one dribble pull-ups. Again, back then when he was playing, when I was working with him from 2008 to 2012, we would get on the court. Most of his game was mid-range shots. He didn't really increase the number of threes that he would take probably until 11, 12, and 13. But a lot of the workout would be mid-range game. One dribble right, would go 7 spots in the one dribble right. Mostly just regular shots and then using the fake. Again, he was big on using the shot fake to get to the free throw line. But again, footwork on the catch, using the fake, hard dribble into the shot, and making sure his footwork was right and on target. He wanted to make sure on his catch and goes, no travel. He wanted to get corrected on that. He didn't want to be able to split his feet, basically having his back foot down. He was a permanent pivot foot guy, so everything he would do driving would have his left foot down and his right foot initiating everything that he did. So one dribble right, 7 spots, free throws, ball handling, and then get to the crossover again, going to his left. So same thing, 7 spots, one dribble left, no fake, then the fake, working on the footwork, working on the technique. Free throws and ball handling from there. And then we got into the post. And the post, he wanted to do a lot of simple things, hooks around the basket in the low post, and then he wanted to work his way to the mid post and to the elbow area. So again, working on hooks with both hands, working on touch, no glass and glass, being able to turn over both shoulders close to the basket. Then we would get into the fadeaway. He's a huge fadeaway fan. He wanted to make sure he was getting separation on every fadeaway, getting the ball high in the air, and making sure he had the best touch going over both shoulders. Then we got into back down 1 or 2 dribbles, fadeaway off the spins on the fadeaway. So basically back down middle to a fadeaway baseline, and then back down baseline fadeaway going middle. And then he would add his fake fadeaway going to the other shoulder, and up and unders and step throughs and things like that. We worked on both posts, low and mid, and then we got to both elbow areas. Again, free throws, ball handling, and then he got into threes. Again, a lot of spots in the threes, 7 spots, making sure he got all the angles in, working on form, working on technique, and just making sure it felt right. Like I told you before, he could spend a minute on one spot. He could spend 7 minutes on one spot. Didn't do a lot of deep shooting. Basically towed the line or a little bit outside of it, but didn't take the Steph Curry threes. Mostly it was just sort of towing the line on the 3-point game. From there, we worked on the jab. So catching, jabbing from the perimeter, wings mostly, and then the top. Catching, jab, shot. Then he got into his jab, fake, and go one dribble right and left. And making sure his footwork was right, ball positioning, protecting the ball in the jab. He was, eyes were always on the rim. Never really had his eyes anywhere but looking at the rim and then looking to make plays for other people. So jab game, jab, jumper, jab off the dribble, step backs off the jab, free throws, ball handling. Then we got into finishing. Finishing first just around the basket. Just using the glass, no glass, right hand, left hand, just making sure fundamentally covering all the types of finishes that he would face. He liked to use imagery, he liked to use just sort of, simulating different types of finishes he would use. No dribble first, then got into the dribble, initiating contact and playing through contact on his finishing. Didn't do a lot of running hooks and didn't do a lot of floaters because, his hands weren't that big. Compared to a Michael Jordan or Kawhi Leonard, so he didn't think he had control of the ball with a running hook or with floaters. But he worked on the floater a little bit, but not much. It wasn't really a strong point of his game. From there, ball handling, free throws, and then game simulation drills. So he would want to do a lot of stuff that he was simulating things out of the triangle. All right, so he would, just the different cuts, the different reads, the different points of attack that he would have, with the ball in his hand. So he wanted to make sure that he was covering all of that. So, just to, initiate the triangle, cut through, shot from the corner or shot drive from the corner, getting into the post, fadeaways in the post, just different ways that he would initiate the offense and get the ball. So we probably spent I would say we spent 20 minutes on sort of simulating triangle work and just where he would catch the ball. Again, he thought that visualizing and working on game situations and game simulation would be a high level of development for him. He always would do that. He would always want to work on things that he'd be doing in games. From there, working on defense, probably spent about, I'd say 8 to 12 minutes on defense when we were working out offensively. When he went all defense on his workouts, which we'll cover in different different recordings. I'll talk about his defensive workouts. But the things that he would do in his simulation of defense would be footwork on closeouts, just shuffling feet, making sure he doesn't cross, hand positioning, make sure he doesn't, we'd simulate where he would close out to a shooter and then, wouldn't leave his feet on the three the best that he could. He wanted to try to visualize the best that he could, work on his feet, work on his fundamentals on defense from there. So from there, we would spend about 5 to 6 minutes on rebounding. He would have me shoot the ball, and he would just, from different spots and different trajectories, he wanted to try to read the ball off the rim. So he'd work it, not a lot, not extensively. It wouldn't be crazy, but I would say like 5 to 7 minutes on different ways he could rebound the ball, off a trajectory from the other side of the floor or different spots on the floor. So working on his rebounding from there. We worked on conditioning shooting drills all the time, probably like 15 to 20 minutes. He wanted to be in the best condition as he could. So we worked on shot from a spot, sprint, touch another spot, come back. We would just sort of put in all these conditioning shooting drills where he would get a lot of movement, a lot of shots, a lot of different spots on the floor, working on different things, specific makes in a specific period of time. So those were important parts to his game. Then the last part would be shooting with threes at the end. But the last part he would do is player emulation. So he would want me to pick a player, and like the night before, say, hey, look, I want to work on Kevin McHale up and unders in the post. I want to work on Tracy McGrady's jab game. I want to work on MJ's step through game off of his fake fadeaways and things that he would do in the post. So we would have specific players to emulate. I would send him the clips the night before as far as what to watch, and then we would just do that, probably about 8 to 10 minutes of just emulating a player, and then just threes from there, and then just getting spots, getting shots, making sure he felt good, free throws, ball handling, and then he would end it from there. Remember, like, people envision workouts of his being crazy all over the place just until he blacks out. Now, he did that definitely earlier in his career. But when I was with him for 4 years or so, and we would get on the court, it would be very fundamental, very game-oriented, and very intense in the time that we were on the floor. But he was the best I've ever seen at self-correction, knowing his own shot, knowing his footwork, knowing when he would travel and just shut the drill down or shut the rep down and go from there. Was into no gimmicks. He was into no BS. And those were basically his workouts. And just basically to sum it up. So hope this helped. I want to share the stories that I had working for him. For Kobe, it was always an unbelievable experience, and just sort of learning from his routine that got him to be one of the best players that ever lived. But if you like it, share it, hit me up on the comments. I'd love to sort of talk. I always love talking hoop, especially Kobe. And hopefully this thing will go for a while. I want to share as many stories, not intimate details or conversations, but how he prepared. And I think, the coaches and the players and the fans and the parents that listen to this, I think can probably, benefit the most out of not how he played, but how he prepared and what his mindset was to compete, in games and practices on a daily basis. So thank you. Hit me up, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.